What's up, everybody? Back at you with another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Got a big interview today talking to a brother. If you've never been to jail and you've never really seen the restraint chair, this brother was in the restraint chair. Not a nice place, but we're going to talk about his life, about his addiction, about that restraint chair, and a whole bunch of other things. But anyway, Steve, tell the people who you are, where you're from, and we're going to talk about your story tonight.
Okay, my name's Stephen Walker. I'm originally from Joplin, Missouri, but I live in Northwest Kansas now. This is where four of my youngest kids and my ex-wife live, so I kind of come down here to live. And what else did you ask me?
We're going to get to it. Hold on.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about your life, man. What was your life like growing up?
Like as a kid?
As a kid.
I was thinking about that today. I got in trouble from as young as I can remember. I was always doing something I wasn't supposed to, stealing, lying, pretty much anything I could. And I really had a problem with authority. I didn't like to be told what to do. So.
What were your parents like? Because I know eventually you get into this, wild, crazy addiction thing. What were your parents like growing up?
Yeah. So just to try to be more respectful towards my mother, she did the best with what she had, but she was pretty abusive to me physically and emotionally. And my dad, they were divorced. My dad lived out of the state, 3 hours away. So, our time together was always good, but it just wasn't very often. It wasn't a lot. Looking back, I think they both loved me and cared for me, but I was just too much, man. They didn't know what to do with me, and they just kind of, I'd say they surrendered it to someone else. You know what I mean? They gave someone else an opportunity to do something with me. So.
When they gave someone else the opportunity, what do you mean, the law?
Well, initially I kind of went back and forth between them, but then it ended up my dad took me one night and dropped me off at my mom's house and thought it was all right, and I knew it wasn't all right. And she turned around and took me back to Kansas from Missouri and dropped me off at the police station in the middle of the night. And then from there, they just put me into foster care. And I was in foster care for about 4 years throughout high school. So
in foster care throughout high school, what was that life like? I mean, was there abuse there? Were the people respectful? Did they take care of you? Did they care about you? What was it like?
The first couple foster homes I was in was decent. But it was definitely different. It was like, cause I went from a lot of isolation. Like I spent a lot of time in my room when I was with my mom. And that was, when I was in there by myself, I wasn't getting yelled at and wasn't, but I had a lot of time to just do shit, and just kind of get into more trouble. What was I kind of lost it.
We're talking about foster care. A lot of kids go through foster care. You had said something about that you went from foster care to foster care. What was it like? Did you feel like, you were with this family and you felt like they loved you, they cared about you, and then they shipped you off to another one?
I didn't feel like that at all, because I kept getting into trouble at each home, and they kept saying, the caseworkers, they'd say, if you don't straighten up, you're going to go to a boys' home. They just kept saying that, and eventually I just aged out. I never went to a boys' home, but they just kept throwing that at me. So no, I didn't really feel like I was part of the family. I felt like they were using us. Like the second to last foster home I was at, they had horses and cows, and they did rodeos and whatnot. We would do all the chores. They would have us work for the farmer down the road for hay and feed and stuff, and tell us they were going to pay us. And then when I graduated, they said, we don't know you anything, stuff like that. And yeah, there's a lot of stories there. That foster care, that's a whole nother, genre. So
let me ask you this though, since you go to foster care, you're no longer with your mother and your father. Did you feel like you wanted those people to love you, to care about you?
Maybe, but I didn't know how to communicate that, or, like if one of those families would have and maybe they wanted to take me in and stuff. I didn't know how to receive that. I wouldn't call what I had with a real loving experience as a child. So I wasn't, even now I'm 36, I don't know how to accept love a lot of times. Someone like a girlfriend or something, just be real good to me, super sweet. and I'll just kind of freak out on her, you know, and it's like, dude, where's that coming from? It's just because I don't know how to accept love. I want to have love. I don't want to be alone all the time, but at the same time, it's like, no, I'm not sure what to do with that. You know, like, is that coming from a good place? Or are you evil? You know, like, I'm not sure.
I
So
think a lot of people that go to prison spend a lot of time in prison feel the same way. You know, you don't know how to accept it when someone gives it because you've been in these situations where it wasn't always given. You know, you've been in some pretty serious places, serious situations where you're like, damn, no one really cares about me, man. So maybe, you know, that probably has something to do with it. But eventually you get out of this foster care. What are you doing with your life, man? I mean, you end up in an addiction.
well, when I got out, yeah, just shortly after I got out of foster care, I was 18. I graduated high school, and then I was released. And I decided to go back to Ark City, Kansas. That's where my dad lives. And the idea was to go to college there and spend more time with him. Well, I get down there and I don't spend so much time with him. I do start going to college, but at that time I started drinking pretty heavy. I hadn't really got into drugs. I smoked weed one time, but what I was really doing, I was drinking every night and ended up getting in trouble at the dorms. I got kicked out of college, basically got kicked out of college. You know, I didn't have a place to stay there, and it was just, um, and then about in that time, since the drinking was a problem, I turned to methamphetamines and weed, coke, pills. I mean, I said no, I'm not going to drink, and I'd take X pills and I'd do Klonopins and all. I mean, just methadones, anything I could get my hands on. Just and that kind of went on. That went on for at least a couple years, 2, 3 years. Just kind of heavy into it, you know.
You feel like that was your way of getting away from the pain and the suffering, or was it just because that you felt like doing it?
You know, I don't really know. Like I know that, you know, like looking back, I can see where I made bad choices and where I could have done things differently. But back then, I felt like that was the only options I had. You know, like I guess initially, like smoking weed and stuff, I wanted to kind of hang out with people and fit in with them. But then a lot of times it turned into isolation. So I'm not really sure why I chose this, you know, this life the way I've chosen, you know. Uh,
So your life spirals out of control. How are you feeding your addiction? What are you doing? You stealing? You're working?
oh, I mean, yeah, I mean, I was working for most of it, but then towards the end, I mean, I wasn't capable of going to work. I mean, when you're sitting there twisting a pipe, you know, and you're stuck on that thing, you can't do nothing else. You know what I mean? It don't work. There's people out there that do it, you know, and they think, boy, I'm a functioning addict or what, but you know, that ain't the right way to live. Yeah.
So what are you doing? Are you out stealing now?
Oh, well, actually, the first time I got arrested was in 2008. I think it was January 28th. Um, I robbed the Army recruiting station in my town. Yeah, yeah. Well, so I was coming down one night, and I remembered I was friends with the recruiter at this recruiting station. I was actually in a few days I was going to be going to boot camp for the Army. No shit. Okay, I'd already went to MEPS, already done the thing. I was going to go to boot camp. Well, I couldn't wait. Like I was doing dope so I could cut weight. I mean, that wasn't the only reason, of course, but I knew that I could do that to cut weight for the Army. I needed to lose like 20, 30 pounds in a couple of weeks. And so I knew I could cut some weight. And I ended up just going up there. I had the key from his house. I go up there and I open up and I take just at the time it was just a digital camera. I took that. Well, he had it was right when that was about the time LCD screens came out. You know, it was a 37-inch LCD or something like that. You know, and I thought, and I took the camera to a guy and I told him about the TV and he's like, yeah, I'll give you $500 for the TV. And again, I was coming down and I needed something. And I ran into a guy at Walmart and he said, yeah, stop by my house tonight. I got all the crack you want. And I'd never even done crack. I just needed something, you know? And I was like, shit. And so, okay. And so I go to get this TV, but I got a Bison. how am I going to haul? It's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. How am I going to haul this bike down? You know? So I get the keys to the Army recruiting car. This car's got Army Strong on it, plastered all over it, you know, or the Army 01, whatever it was. And I set the TV down by the car, and then, you know, here comes the cops, and they turn in, and that's the first time I got arrested. So yeah, to answer your question, I was stealing for my addiction. It got to that point, you know.
Then you end up in jail, right?
Yeah.
Prison. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh man, that first time was pretty rough. It was like I did like 34 days, and it got down. My bond was only $100, but my dad let me set because he wasn't, you know, he wasn't happy with me. His boy robbed the Army recruiting station, you know, and I'm sure the guys at work were having, you know, giving a hard time about, or, you know, mentioning it or asking them about it, you know, just I can't imagine going through that as a father, but
I know eventually you start to really spiral out of control, right? You end up in jail, you end up in that restraint chair, you end up in a graveyard destroying it butt naked.
yeah.
Let's talk about that trip when you end up in the restraint chair.
Okay. I'll try to keep it short, but just let me know if you want me to, if you need more info or whatever. So what happened is I had a business selling promotional products. I was a best-selling author. I wrote a book and sold it and all this stuff. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. But I had the opportunity to go down to Texas for some business, or what I thought to be was, you know, I thought it was a legitimate deal. And I go down there, and it kind of goes to shit. And my wife and my kids go down there to help me. Well, we get into it. I was having what I know to be a bipolar episode now.
I gotta stop you for a minute, because you said, you know, you go down there and everything goes to shit and they come to help you. What happened? Why did they have to come help you?
Well, with the guy, okay, so the guy told me, if you come down here, I'll cover your hotel room, this and that. He said, you don't have to worry about money because we'll make plenty of it. You know, it was like selling hail damage repair on vehicles. It was during one of them hurricanes. They had a whole bunch of hail damage. So he was telling me, you know, you're a good sales guy. All you got to do is, you know, you got to go beat your feet and talk to these people, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I got down there, and he was wanting me to do all the work. He wanted my contacts. You know, I had some business contacts that he knew about, and he wanted to get his foot in the door with them. And I got a bad feeling about him, and I called my wife, and looking back, I might have been exaggerating that. I might have seen that completely for what it wasn't, you know, but the wife said, okay, I'll come get you. And you know, we went from there. But like I said, I just kind of, you know, I spazzed out on her. I was having one of them episodes. I'm bipolar. I didn't know that at the time, you know? And so I wasn't on no meds, just kind of self-medicating over the years. Even when I wasn't, you know, getting crazy, I was always smoking weed or drinking or whatever. But I freaked out on her, and she got mad, and she left me down there. And then I started eating mushrooms. I ate mushrooms for about a month. I don't know how much of that played into my downfall, but it was in Southeast Texas, and it was about, I want to say it was like 6 or 7 miles into town, and I'd walk into town every day, and I don't know what I was doing or what I thought I was doing, but I'd walk around with signs, and I wasn't begging nobody for money. I usually wouldn't take it if they offered it, but it would say like, be kind, and, you know, different stuff like that. I was enjoying myself. I'd listen to music, and people would be honking, and they'd smile and, you know, wave at me. Because at first glance, it's like, this guy's out here just asking for money. He needs to get a job, you know. But once they realized I wasn't doing that, it was kind of cool. But anyway, so on that way into town, you know, there's several houses along the way. Well, one of those times I was coming back, and I'd stripped all my clothes off. All I had on was my pants, you know, and everything else, my cell phone, my wallet, everything, I just started flinging it on the side of the road. It was one of them times where I was just like, you know what, like, I don't need none of this shit. I'm sick of it. It's tying me down. I don't love none of this stuff more than God. I was having a wrestling moment with God, I think, you know, like, I don't know what you believe, and I'm not trying to push, certain stuff on nobody, but I'm saying I was having a wrestling moment with what I believe is God, and man, I ended up at this house, and it looked like somebody. So I go into this house. For some reason, I thought that was my house. That's a long story how I got there, but long story short, I thought that was my new place. I thought that was going to be a good place for me and my family for whatever reason. Well, it looked like somebody just moved into that house. So for some reason, I thought all that stuff was mine. Right. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, is this how this works, God? Like, am I finally free? Like, like, am I into the land and milk and honey? And come find out, no, that's not what was going on. I go outside and I'm just kind of walking around looking and stuff. And this guy pulls up, and so I go out to him. He's at the mailbox. It's like, so how does this work? And he's like, what do you mean? And it was a Mexican guy, younger guy. And I said, well, I went in the house and I looked around and stuff, and I was like, this is pretty cool, And he's like, you went in my house? And I said, yeah. And he pulls a gun. And as soon as he pulls his gun, I just threw my hands up, and I was like, dude, I'm not armed. All I had on was a pair of pants that I took from inside the house. When I was in the house, I took the pants that I had on and I traded some out because I found some that fit me. I put on a shirt of his. I put it on because I needed a new shirt, and I had to take it back off. Them damn armpits, for some reason, dude, he wasn't taking care of himself. No. I always thought back to that, and I thought that's a funny thing to remember how bad that shirt stunk, and I took it off, But I get out, this is fast forward when I'm talking to him again, and he beats the hell out of me. I think, yeah, he beats the hell out of me. He's hitting me with something. He actually, I doubt you could see it on camera, but there's a piece of my ear missing. I'll try to show that later or something. He hit me with
something. We're good on the ear missing, but go ahead.
What's that?
We're good on the ear missing, but go ahead. I'm listening.
Well, it's just a little piece, but it's definitely something you can see. But he hit me in like 4 or 5 different spots real fast. Oh, no, first, I missed something. When I said I wasn't armed, he said, okay, swing on me. And I'm looking at him, like I was just in this man's house, and I'm just realizing that I was in this man's house. It's coming to me that I'm in the wrong and this guy could rightfully kill me. And it's Texas, man. Like you're on someone's property, they have every right, I believe, And when he said swing on me, I'm thinking I have to. So I swung as hard as I could, Of course, I'm worn out, exhausted at this point, and who knows what else. And he just kind of ducks back, and that's when he starts lighting me up with something. He hit me in the ear, hit me in both my arms and my legs, and then he tells me to take the pants off and tells me to take off, like to go, like to run, get away from there. So I'm running down this highway, pretty busy highway, and I'm naked. I got blood all over me, and every time I get to where I can't run no more, I stop. I lay down in the grass, and then here this guy comes, the same guy, and he's got his phone out and he's filming me. He's like, no, man, this is my property too. Get the fuck out of here. He just kept hollering at me and running me down the road. So eventually, I think he called the law after he beat up on me. He called the law. So the laws are coming, and I'm freaked out. I'm scared. Like, I don't know if they're there to help. When you see the law, a lot of times you think, this ain't gonna be no good for me. So I kind of took off from them too, and they chased me.
You're kind of like naked and afraid.
Damn straight I was, man. Hey, that's a whole nother meaning to naked and afraid, dude. No, we haven't even got to the chair. That's where I was really naked and afraid. Real, like, no.
Running down the road, what happens?
So that's how they took me to the Matagorda County Jail. They're in Southeast Texas. I pull up to the jail. I'd been kicking on the door. I'd been banging around. I had blood all over the place. They take me out of the truck and take me straight to what I know now it was the padded cell. That was my custody. That's what they called it. That's what I was classified as, is padded cell. They'd put me in different cells, but they'd always say, "Yeah, you're still on padded cell watch." I'm like, oh. So they put me in the padded cell, and I'd say for a good 24 hours, they didn't give me any water. They had me in this cell completely naked. The only thing in the cell was in the middle on the floor. There's a hole, and that's where you're supposed to go to the bathroom at. Okay. If you want water, there's no running water in the cell. There's not a toilet in there, and there's not a sink. So if you want water, they come around when you're on padded in the padded cell. Every 15 minutes, they have to make their rounds, and they have to open the door flap and look in and make sure you're still moving, make sure you're still alive. So when they open that window, you have a small window to ask them for a drink of water, for toilet paper. Hey, am I gonna die? And if you want to ask them something, that's the time. And if you didn't ask them right, you didn't say it just right, you weren't getting your toilet paper, you weren't getting your water, you weren't getting nothing. And so when I first get in there, I'm kicking the door. I mean I'm yelling. I guarantee you I yelled for 24 hours, 40 hours straight, kicking. And I'm talking about, if I get tired standing up kicking, I'm gonna lay on my back and get it kicking. You know what I mean? And I'm not recommending that. So if anybody's listening and they're thinking, man, that dude's, that's crazy. It was crazy. Yeah. And the stuff that I did wasn't necessarily right choices, but I'm telling you this because I did do that. And I'm saying, you don't want to do that. It don't work like that. Like I've never really met anybody that's been in the restraint chair or the padded cell. We've talked, you said, you've done some solitary confinement and all that, but dude, it's a whole nother thing. I mean, it's bad enough to go to jail, but if you go to jail, kind of do what they tell you. You know what I mean? Like, kind of fall in line.
You end up in this restraint chair eventually, right?
Yeah.
Why do you go to the restraint chair? Because you're kicking the door, they just had enough of your shit, or what?
No, I think when they finally put me in the restraint chair, it's because I'd ripped a big section of padding off the wall. And I exposed the concrete floor. So they said that they were putting me in there for my safety. And no, what it was is they hollered in, they're like, Steven, you want us to bring the chair in here? And I hollered back, fuck yeah, bring me that chair. because I was thinking of Borat. You ever seen that movie? He's like, I have a chair. So I kept thinking, man, yeah, bring me a chair. And they brought that in, and it ain't what I wanted. They put me into it naked. So I'm still naked. And the cell is probably 60 to 65 degrees, somewhere in there. I mean, they kept it cool. And if I had to go to the bathroom, number one or two, it's just on me to do it. In that chair, the way that chair sets, if you set it the way you're setting, when you piss, it pulls up. Well, as bad as it is, you let it set there because it's warm. Okay. But then eventually it gets cold, and you got to get it off you. So you got to, with all your strength, you got to push your butt up, lift your, it's kind of nasty, but you got to lift your naked ass and all that off of that seat to let all that piss run out the back, and if you take a shit, it ain't no good, man, because you can't do all that. You got to just sit in.
Ask you this: what's it like when a bunch of grown men have to restrain you and put you in this chair, you're butt naked? How do you feel inside? Are you hurt? Are you defeated? Like, man, I can't do nothing, I'm stuck.
To be honest with you, man, the whole time, like, it would go back and forth. Like, I guess that's the bipolar. I don't know, maybe some other stuff going on there, but I would go from thinking that they were trying to take care of me and help me to thinking that they were going to kill me. So I would go from feeling like, this is going to be all right, it's okay, it's kind of fun, it's like a game, to thinking, no, they're trying to kill me right now. So I'd be terrified. I'd be real terrified, real like scared of them and stuff. And then I'd be like cracking jokes with them and trying to be friendly, because that's the only people you get to talk to. Like the guard comes through, you want to crack a joke to him when he comes around every 15 minutes.
How long did they
But
leave
yeah,
you in the
it
restraint?
was
Hold
it
on.
was it was another experience to have. It wasn't just men. There was a couple women involved, and to like be completely dependent on them for everything. Yeah, that's humbling.
How long did they leave you in the restraint chair for?
I want to say I was in it for about a week, not straight, but for about a week total,
How long straight?
over 24 hours.
Do you think it destroyed you mentally to be strapped to a chair like that where you can't get up?
Well, I'd like to think something destroyed me, and I think that was a big part of it. Yeah, yeah, I think it dramatically affected my life, man. I mean, I struggled with nightmares as a child, um, but when I got out of there in 2018 and I came back, was around my kids and my ex-wife and everything, uh, it started in there. Like I'd have nightmares every night, and then you know it wasn't but a couple years later I got back on the dope again. Well, the thing about it is, if you're having nightmares, you don't want to go to sleep, so that's another excuse that I know what'll keep me awake. you know and with bipolar disorder, I can stay up for a couple days just thinking about something. I don't need no dope, you know what I mean? So
So you end up spending a week in that chair, but you know what? I keep coming back to the same thing, right?
yeah.
How did it feel to have other men and women strap you to a chair? Were you fighting back? I mean, the first time you went there, were you trying to fight and stop them? And then that's it. You got to give up. There's nothing you
Yeah,
can do.
yeah. I mean, I definitely fought them. I definitely fought them. But it didn't matter. I mean, the more I fought them, the more they bring it. I mean, it didn't matter what I did. They were answering with violent force. Like I felt like they were coming in there each time they'd come in there. I felt like they were trying to shut me up for good. Like I thought that I was just going to be another statistic of some guy that just got his ass stomped on down in Texas. Some Kansas guy coming down acting like he's some big shot writing I was talking about my book that I wrote, and so they're quoting my book to me. Like it's called "Can You Hear Me Now?" They're saying, "I hear you, Stephen. I hear you." you know.
Ask you this, right? Because I know some people are going to also be curious. The book's called "Can I Hear You?" But what's the book about? Is it like a self-help book?
No,
What kind of book was it?
it's called "Can You Hear Me Now?" Getting attention in the marketplace. It's basically how I went and got some higher end clients to do business with me. I, I I was wanting to tell my story with the book, but the publisher, she kind of went the business route. So that's how
So you
that
said
went.
you were a best-selling author. Did you make some money?
I didn't really make no. I mean, we spent more money than we made on it, because we bought a bunch of books. So that's how that it's really anybody could be a best-selling author. If you got a few $1,000s, throw it to the right person, you'll be a bestseller, pretty much in a couple weeks. So, but at the time, I thought that was gonna like change my life. You know what I mean? I thought, I'm a best-selling author now, and it really, I mean, it's still something. Not a lot of people have their own books out and stuff, but it hasn't. I'm not using it now. You know.
You said you slipped back into addiction. What happens?
But I mean, the same thing. I mean, the what you can expect. I mean, I let things go. I got fired from my job, a good paying job. One of the better jobs I'd ever had, working at a wastewater plant at a meat packing house. I loved it. I got fired from that just a couple days before Christmas. I was expecting a Christmas bonus. I was going to buy some stuff for the kids, and instead I found out you don't have a job any longer, bud. I stayed in my car for several months there in the coldest part of the winters. It was December, January, February. I mean, it was there was sometimes it was 10 degrees, it got pretty cold. And, of course, I'm just sitting in my car smoking dope. So it wasn't, I mean, it was cold, but I was able to not die. I didn't starve to death. I didn't, whatever. But then I eventually let my insurance and my tag slide on my car. It was around COVID time. So, there's a grace period, but I took that a little too far. I ended up, there was some ice, and I'd slid in the ice and kind of tore my car up a little bit. Well, then I was driving along, and I was having a hard time steering it, and I wrecked it into a truck. And at the time, I had dope on me. I was high. I knew my tag and my insurance was lapsed, and here I am hitting a truck. But so to keep with it, I got my license got suspended. I carried SR22 for 6 months and then let it go. So basically, I just let all my responsibilities, the stuff that I care about, the stuff that was important to me, I just kind of set all that to the side. My children, my father, just I was just stuck in it, man.
You end up getting clean, right?
Yeah. Well, what it took was another outbreak, I call it an outburst. I went to the hospital, similar symptoms, thinking stuff that wasn't. What happened is I'd been staying with my cousin out in the country in his trailer, and he's a hoarder. It's a giant mess out there, but for some reason I thought that he was dead in there, and so I called 911 after I broke into the place. I called 911 and tell them, they come out and they're thinking that I was trying to rob this guy, whoever it is. Well, it's my cousin. It's my dad's cousin, so second cousin. I don't know why I thought he was dead, but turns out it was the smell of his house. It wasn't nothing dead, They confirmed the smell, but it wasn't, nothing bad. He was actually at work, So because of all that, because of the way I answered the questions, because they're asking me stuff to find out how my mental state is, they gave me an option. The sheriff said, "Do you want to ride with?" Because the ambulance showed up. They said, "Do you want to ride with him or do you want to ride with me?" I said, "I want to ride in the ambulance," and I think he was giving me an option, either go to jail or go to the hospital. But Chad, I'm telling you, at that point, they should not have given me an option. I should have been taken to the hospital, and I was. But what should have followed at the hospital is not just my physical concerns. They made sure that I wasn't dehydrated, which I was. They put fluids in me. They gave me some other stuff. They fed me. But what was the problem? The problem was in my head, is mental health stuff. So they should have had a mental health evaluation done. And I should have never left that hospital the way I was, and I want people to hear that. Yeah, I tore up this cemetery. I did. I walked across the highway from this hospital, and I caused like $57,000 in damages, and people in jail, they're like, "I can't believe you would do that." You disrespected the dead. You did this. And I'm like, that wasn't my intentions. I wasn't trying to hurt nobody. I wasn't trying to disrespect nobody. I was going through it, man. Like I thought I was like earning awards. The more shit I tore up, I thought I was racking it up. You know what I mean? I thought, same thing with the Texas deal. I was thinking, man, my kids are gonna have a better life than me. As I smash something, I'm like, man, that's got to be worth a couple thousand. You know what I mean? Like that's 10,000 there. And that's really what I was thinking. But that wasn't it, and so I went to jail from there. They had me on Halidol. You know what Halidol is?
Yeah, I know what Halidol is.
It's no good, man. It's no good. And if you don't need it, you shouldn't be on it. Well, the whole 100 days I was in jail, they had me on that, and that was pretty bad. That was pretty messed up. But how I got sober, that's how I got sober. I went to jail for 100 days. When I got out, I seeked out some help from the mental health there. I got right on some meds. I started talking with the doctor, and they changed my meds and kind of got me through that time. And I've pretty much been on medicine since. So I think that's been a big part of me, having more clarity and being able to, function.
What are you doing now with your life, man? I know you got kids, you got an ex-wife. What are you doing now? Are you working?
Well,
what are you doing?
To be honest with you right now, I'm not I'm not doing a whole lot. I mean, I'm doing a lot of stuff, but it's not adding up to a lot. Like I'll just tell you, I work at Tractor Supply part time, and I work at the Mexican restaurant. And um, between the two, I bet I only get 20 to 25 hours. So it's not really enough. But I also mow yards, and I bought a really nice trimmer and a blower this year, and so I'm offering like an edging service, trimming service, just, and I got a push mower so I can mow some yards. I mean, I'm pretty much just doing what I got to. Um, but even like, well, like, I told you I got my license suspended. Well, and I told you I went to jail. When I got out of jail, I had 2 years on corrections. But that's what my sentence was: 2 years on corrections, and it was like 24 months or maybe 36 months or something DOC. And so I walked down the probation. I got off probation January 4th. That's right on time. I worked really hard. I worked 2 jobs 7 days a week so that I could pay all my fines off. Because I owed like 3,500 altogether, and I waited to the last like 6-7 months to pay it, because he said, "Hey, if you don't pay it, we're just gonna keep you on corrections." And I was like, "Nah, dude, that ain't what I'm trying to do." So I got off corrections. Then I got my license reinstated. A month or so ago, I got a car, not a real great car. You know what I mean? Just like, but even with, like with the financial kind of stress, um, with the stress of now having a vehicle and having to maintain that, and having 2 jobs that I kind of got to run back and forth to, and kind of got to keep my schedule straight, even with all that, man, I'm doing pretty good, man. Like I'm doing pretty well. Like I'm able to I see my kids off to school, man, when they start school. Uh, I don't see them near as much as I want to, but that's the main reason I kind of reached out to you initially, is because if I can get right with this, with these experiences that I've had, and like you've had similar experiences, if I can kind of work through this and get onto the other side of like helping guys like what you do, like I don't know nothing about law work and stuff, but you are actively helping guys that were in situations that you were in, and so I think you got to feel pretty good about that mentally. But me, I'm still on the other side of like, man, I'm still like having flashbacks, and I'm still, you know, not sure if when somebody walks up behind me, if I should crack them with an elbow. You know what I mean? Like I was working in a kitchen for a couple months at the grocery store, and I almost smacked a woman. She didn't know it. Nobody else knew it, but and I've never been one to hit a woman, but it's just, she showed up, I didn't see her, and it's just like I almost backhanded her, and it's like, man, but when I have those thoughts and stuff, I think, man, what's wrong with you, but there's nothing wrong. I mean, there is something wrong with me. Like I got mental issues and stuff, but I'm not a bad person. That those thoughts, those things, they don't make me, they don't make me something. You know what I mean? Either like whether I think poorly about myself or really well of myself, it don't really move the needle too much. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. But listen, man, I mean, you're living a better life. You've been out of jail. You kind of like, your addiction's a struggle, but you seem like you conquered it up to this point. You got to stay focused. Take care of yourself. Take care of your kids. And hey, listen, your that's real life. The stuff you're going through, the stuff that you've been through, it's real life. But you know what? Stay free. Before we get ready to go, though, Steve, anything you want to say?
Man, I would just say I don't have anything to plug. I would just say, if anybody out there wants to reach out to me and say, hey, I've been there, what it's just I want to connect with other folks that are kind of like-minded, and it's quite all right to get locked up. It's quite all right to make bad choices and have consequences. But if you're on the other side that I'm on, that you're trying not to make those same choices and have those same bad consequences, then message me. Let's I don't have nothing to sell you, but just I like to have the fellowship with other guys that used to be knuckleheads and now they're trying to not be a knucklehead, you know, trying to be fathers and husbands and, you know what I mean? And influencers. Like that's cool, man. That's cool to go from being in federal prison to helping guys get out of there. You know, I mean, that's awesome, man. Like that's a movement that I would fully support, and I'll do anything I can to help you, Chad. And like I said, if anybody else out there has kind of been in my shoes, please let me know that I'm not the only one. Because I'll be honest, I can't talk to my dad about this. I'll tell him, you might not want to watch this, Dad. Because anytime I've tried to talk to him about being in that padded cell or restraint chair, he ain't trying to hear it. And I ain't mad at him. I understand, but man, it's tough because who am I supposed to talk to about it, Chad? You know, should I talk to a therapist about it?
Probably.
You know,
listen,
probably. Yeah.
Listen, man, again, I appreciate you coming on, kind of sharing your story. And the reason I did this interview with you is because I want people to see the mental health effects of prison, of jail, being put in one of these restraint chairs. You know, there's some young dudes out there that think, you know, they might be watching thinking, man, that's it, man, I'm doing me. But man, when they put you in that chair, it's the most lonely, depressing. You know, you're at the lowest of the low. You can't fight back. They got you, and there's nothing you can do. And you know what I always say, men make their own decisions. So, you know, for dudes that are watching, chicks, whatever, listen, man, it's better to do the right thing than to do the wrong thing. But anyway, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. With respect, until tomorrow, we're out.